Yay duh. Vance opened a folder to reveal a deleted line that proved Adam Schiff knew he was destroying an innocent man's life. And in 15 seconds of deafening silence, Schiff refused to say the 3 words that could make it right. Yay duh. Vance opened a folder and read an analysis no one had ever assembled. Every time Adam Schiff went on television and said collusion 412 times in 6 years, it was placed side by side with every contract, every client, and every relationship that Carter Page lost, showing the 78% correlation. Every time Schiff went on air, Page lost something. Then Vance turned the page, and the next document was a draft of Schiff's own FISA memo, sent to staff before the official version was published. The draft contained one line that the official version deleted, and that line changes everything. Smash that like button because you are about to see the deleted line that proves Adam Schiff didn't just defend a broken process, he knew it was broken and erased the proof. Mr. Vice President, I've spent my career holding power accountable, Schiff began. I prosecuted a Russian spy for the FBI. I chaired the Intelligence Committee during the most significant counterintelligence investigation since the Cold War. And I am being questioned by a man who has spent his career enabling the very abuses of power I have fought to expose. Adam Schiff sat at the witness table with the posture of a prosecutor, which is what he was before everything else. Before the chairmanship, before the impeachment, before the 412 television appearances. The posture was upright, controlled, optimized for cross-examination. The face was calibrated for jury distance, the hands were folded, and the composure was running at 15% above normal. It was the overcorrection of a man who had been through one hearing with Johnson and had learned from it the way prosecutors learn from lost cases, by studying the transcript and preparing for every question that worked last time. The man who had spent his career holding power accountable had promoted, on 412 television appearances, a collusion narrative that 4 federal investigations found unsupported. He had released a congressional memo defending the FISA surveillance process that the Inspector General subsequently found contained 17 significant errors. He had been censured by the House of Representatives for misleading the American public and the American citizen whose life was destroyed by the surveillance he promoted and defended. Carter Page had received a $1.25 million settlement from the United States government 3 months ago, with a DOJ statement that read, "No American should ever face covert and unlawful surveillance based on their political views." Vice President JD Vance sat at the far end of the dais in a dark suit, no tie. His folder sat on the desk, thin and tabbed. He had not spoken during Schiff's opening statement. "Senator, I want to start with the name." He did not open the folder. Carter Page. He looked at Schiff. "Do you know what your words cost him?" "Senator, in February 2018, you released a memo under your authority as ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee defending the FBI's FISA warrant application process for the surveillance of Carter Page. You told America the FBI followed correct procedures. You released the memo as an official congressional document. Speaker Johnson in the previous hearing showed this committee that 9 of 13 specific claims in your memo were directly contradicted by the Inspector General, 69% wrong. I'm not going to relitigate that. The numbers are on the record. I'm going to show you something Speaker Johnson didn't have. He opened the folder. The committee obtained, through a document preservation request to the House Intelligence Committee's archives, the internal draft history of your February 2018 memo. Congressional memos go through drafts. Staff write, members edit, drafts are circulated, revised, finalized. The final version is the version the public sees. The committee obtained draft 3, the third to last draft circulated to your senior staff on the 1st of February 2018, 3 days before the final version was released. He pulled the document. Draft 3 contains a paragraph that does not appear in the final version. I'm going to read it. Schiff's pen, the lawyer's comfort object, the same pen that had rolled in the Johnson hearing, was already in his hand. The hand had found it before the hearing began. This time, not as displacement, but as preparation. The pen was a prop now, the prop of a man who holds things when testimony is being read, because holding things is what lawyers do when exhibits are introduced. The paragraph reads, while the Inspector General's preliminary concerns regarding FISA application procedures have been noted by the committee And while the committee acknowledges that certain procedural questions merit continued review, the committee assesses at this time that these concerns do not rise to the level of systemic abuse of the surveillance process. He set the draft on the desk. The Inspector General's preliminary concerns have been noted. Senator, that sentence that was in draft 3 and was deleted from the final version tells the committee 3 things. First, you knew before you released the memo, before you told America the FBI followed correct procedures, you knew the Inspector General had preliminary concerns about the FISA application process. The draft says noted. Noted means we read them, we receive them, we are aware. Second, you acknowledge those concerns were real. The draft says certain procedural questions merit continued review. Merit continued review is not the language of dismissal. It is the language of a committee that recognizes a problem exists. Third, you deleted both of those acknowledgments from the final version. The final memo, the memo America saw, contains no reference to IG concerns, no reference to procedural questions, no noted, no merit continued review. The final memo says correct procedures, period. Schiff's pen stopped. Not rolling, stopped. The pen was horizontal in his fingers, held between the thumb and index finger at the midpoint, the position of a pen that is being held but not used, and whose stillness communicates the stillness of the hand holding it. The hand was not trembling, the hand was calculating. The hand of a lawyer who has just heard an exhibit read and is determining in real time whether the exhibit is admissible, whether the characterization is accurate, and whether the objection he wants to make will sound like a defense or a confession. Mr. Vice President, the characterization of draft edits as evidence of knowledge is senator. The deleted line is not a stylistic edit. It is the removal of an acknowledgement. You acknowledged in your own draft, in your own words circulated to your own staff, that the IG had concerns about the FISA process, and you erased that acknowledgement before the public saw it. You didn't just defend a broken process. You knew the process had been flagged, and you erased the flag. He turned the page. Now, let me show you what that eraser cost a person. Carter Page is a Navy veteran. He has a PhD from the University of London. He worked as an energy consultant, legally, publicly. In 2016, he volunteered as a foreign policy advisor on the Trump campaign, unpaid, part-time. In October 2016, the FBI obtained a FISA warrant to surveil him. The warrant was based in part on the Steele dossier, opposition research funded by the Clinton campaign, containing allegations that the FBI was still corroborating when it used them to justify surveillance. The warrant was renewed 4 times. Carter Page was surveilled for over a year. He was never charged with a crime. Not one in 6 years of investigation, not one charge. In April 2026, the DOJ settled with Carter Page for $1.25 million. The DOJ statement said Carter Page, a man never charged with a single crime, relied on inherently flawed and uncorroborated information, proving it was a political sham from the get-go. The government admitted it was wrong. You have not. He pulled the amplification analysis. Senator, the committee's analysts mapped your 412 television appearances, every appearance between January 2017 and April 2019, on which you used the words evidence, collusion, or FISA against Carter Page's documented professional and personal losses during the same period. Each loss was verified through employment records, contract terminations, speaking engagement cancellations, and client communications obtained through Page's legal proceedings. He read the findings. 78% of Carter Page's documented professional losses occurred within 14 days of one of your television appearances. Schiff's composure, the prosecutorial composure, the 15% overcorrection held, but the pen in his hand rotated 1/4 turn. The unconscious rotation of an object being processed by a hand that is no longer holding it for comfort, but holding it because releasing it would require a decision, and decisions require cognitive resources that are currently allocated to processing the number 78. The committee examined the reasons cited by employers and clients who severed relationships with Page consulting firms, energy companies, speaking bureaus. In the communications obtained through discovery, the most common phrases were media exposure, reputational risk, and ongoing investigation. Media exposure. Senator, the media exposure was you, 412 times on 6 networks. The firms didn't say FISA warrant, they didn't say Steele dossier, they said media exposure. And the media exposure, the thing they were afraid of, was a congressman going on television and saying evidence and collusion in plain sight 412 times. Every appearance was a broadcast. Every broadcast reached millions. And every million people who heard collusion looked at Carter Page and saw a Russian agent because you told them he was. Schiff attempted the objection. Mr. Vice President, the suggestion that my public statements caused specific Vance did not pause. The Midwest quiet continued at its own pace. Schiff's objection, traveling toward employment consequences, is speculative and without evidentiary basis, encountered a voice that did not stop and did not accelerate, and simply continued the way a river continues past a rock, not by fighting the rock, but by flowing around it. The committee also quantified the financial impact on Page. He read, career losses, contracts terminated, engagements canceled, consulting work, lost approximately $2.4 million over 5 years. Legal fees, attorneys, FOIA requests, public records fights, settlement negotiations approximately $1.8 million, settlement received from DOJ $1.25 million, net loss approximately $2.95 million. Senator, the government surveilled Carter Page, destroyed his career, and settled for less than half what it cost him to prove he did nothing wrong. And you, the man who amplified the narrative that justified the surveillance, received a Senate seat. Carter Page got $1.25 million after losing $4.2 million. You got 6 more years of power. The math is the story, Senator. Schiff's jaw, the prosecutor jaw, the cross-examination jaw, tightened in a configuration that was no longer prosecutorial. The jaw was defensive, the jaw of a man on the witness side of a cross-examination, which is a position no prosecutor ever trains for, because prosecutors are supposed to be on the other side. The jaw was wrong. It was configured for offense but deployed in defense, and the misconfiguration was visible in the asymmetry, the left masseter tighter than the right, the mandible angled slightly off-center. The facial architecture of a man whose muscle memory is fighting his current reality. Senator, I want to read the DOJ's settlement statement one more time because I want the committee to hear what the government said about what was done to Carter Page. He read slowly, the Middletown cadence, the cadence of a man who reads important things the way his grandmother read, carefully, because the words matter. No American should ever face covert and unlawful surveillance based on their political views. The investigation into Carter Page, a man never charged with a single crime, relied on inherently flawed and uncorroborated information, proving it was a political sham from the get-go. The targeting of American citizens for political purposes constitutes a severe violation of civil liberties. Those are not my words, Senator. Those are the words of the Department of Justice of the United States. The government, the institution you claim to be defending when you released your FISA memo, has officially described what happened to Carter Page as a political sham, unlawful surveillance, and a severe violation of civil liberties. And your memo, the memo with the deleted line, the memo that said correct procedures, the memo that erased the IG's concerns, your memo was the public defense of that sham. Your 412 television appearances were the public amplification of that sham, and Carter Page was the person who lived inside that sham for 6 years while you were on television telling America it was real. He pulled the final comparison, the committee's analysis of public trust in intelligence agencies. The committee examined public polling on trust in U.S. intelligence agencies during the period of your claims in 2016. Before the collusion narrative became a daily feature of American media, public trust in intelligence agencies was approximately 72%. By 2023, it had fallen to 41%. 31 points, Senator. A 3-1-point collapse in public trust in the institutions you sat atop as chairman. You didn't just damage Carter Page, you damaged the thing you claim to be protecting. In Middletown, we have a word for a man who burns down his own house and then applies for the insurance. I won't say the word, but the principle is the same. You undermined the intelligence community by promoting claims it could not substantiate, and then told America you were defending the intelligence community. Schiff's composure crossed the threshold it had crossed in the Johnson hearing, from invisible effort to visible effort. The overcorrection was now running at 25%. The stillness was too perfect, the breathing too measured, the blink rate too low. The room could see the performance, and the performance, the visible effort of appearing unconcerned, was itself the most concerning thing in the room. Vance's voice changed, lower, closer to the Middletown register. Senator, I grew up in a house where the adults lied. Not big lies, small ones. Lies about where the money went, lies about who was coming home, lies about whether the electricity would stay on. Small lies, daily lies, the kind of lies that don't make the news but make a child stop trusting the adults in the room. And the worst part, the part that stays with you longer than the lie itself, is that the adults never said sorry. They never said I was wrong. They just moved on to the next lie, to the next excuse, to the next day. And the child who knew the truth, who saw the bill on the counter, who heard the fight through the wall, the child was left holding the truth alone. Carter Page is holding the truth alone, Senator. The government admitted it was wrong. The DOJ settled. The IG found 17 errors. The FISA court said the FBI misled them. Mueller found no collusion. Durham found no evidence. Your own memo draft acknowledged the IG's concerns, and you deleted the acknowledgement. Everyone involved has either admitted error, been found wrong, or settled. Everyone except you, Senator. Carter Page didn't just lose money. He lost 6 years. He lost his career. He lost the ability to walk into a room without someone wondering if he's a Russian agent. He lost that because of 412 television appearances by the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, appearances that the chairman made knowing, according to his own draft memo, that the IG had flagged the process. Senator, you owe Carter Page something that $1.25 million cannot buy. You owe him 3 words: I was wrong. The government said it. A political sham from the get-go, unlawful surveillance, a severe violation of civil liberties. The government found the words. Can you? 5 seconds. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 seconds. The same 15 that Johnson had gotten the length of silence that Schiff's body had calibrated for, had prepared for, had braced against since the first hearing. But the silence was different this time. Johnson's silence had been the silence of a man who could not show evidence that didn't exist. Vance's silence was the silence of a man who could not say 3 words that did exist. I was wrong. 3 words, 3 syllables. The shortest sentence in the English language that contains a complete admission. Shorter than I don't recall, shorter than the characterization of. Shorter than every sentence Schiff had used to avoid saying it for 6 years. And in 15 seconds, he did not say them. Schiff's face, the prosecutor face, the face that had been performing composure at 25% over correction, did not change. The face held. The face was designed to hold. The face had been holding through 2 hearings and 6 years of questions and would hold through this one too. But his eyes, the eyes that had looked at cameras on 6 networks and said, I have seen evidence with absolute certainty, shifted. Not dramatically. The shift of a man who is looking at the vice president and is considering for the first time in 6 years whether the thing he has been refusing to say is the thing he should have said at the beginning. The consideration lasted less than a second. It was visible only in the microdilation of the pupils, the involuntary response of an eye that has received new information and is processing it at a depth the face cannot display. The consideration passed. The face held. The words did not come. In Middletown, the adults never said sorry. They moved on. And the children grew up knowing that the truth was something you held alone, because the people who owed you the truth would never give it to you. Carter Page is holding the truth alone, Senator. The government gave him $1.25 million. You haven't given him 3 words. He closed the folder. No further questions. Schiff responded. His response was 2 minutes and 44 seconds, nearly identical to his Johnson hearing response. He mentioned that the Durham investigation was deeply flawed. He mentioned that history will judge. He mentioned that the Russian threat to American democracy was real and remains real. He mentioned that Carter Page had documented contacts with Russian intelligence that warranted concern. He did not say I was wrong. He did not address the deleted line from draft 3. He did not address the 78% correlation. He did not address the $2.95 million net loss. He did not address the DOJ settlement statement. He did not address the 3-1 one-point trust collapse. He addressed the threat, not the cost. The threat that might have existed, not the cost that did exist. The threat that justified the surveillance, not the man who survived it. Vance did not react. He had closed the folder. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and he did not look at Schiff on his way out. Carter Page's name was still on the desk. The first word Vance had said, and the last thing the cameras focused on. Not a number, not a percentage, not a policy, a name. A veteran, a PhD, a man who volunteered for a campaign and spent 6 years and $4.2 million proving he committed no crime, while the chairman of the Intelligence Committee went on television 412 times and told America he had. The first clip to break was the deleted line Vance reading the paragraph from draft 3 that was removed from the final memo. The Inspector General's preliminary concerns have been noted. The clip was 13 seconds long. It was shared 31 million times in the first 24 hours. The clip answered a question that had been open since the Johnson hearing. Did Schiff know the FISA process was flawed when he defended it? The deleted line said yes. He knew, he acknowledged, and he erased the acknowledgement. The second clip was 78%, the amplification correlation between Schiff's TV appearances and Carter Page's losses. This clip traveled through legal communities, through civil liberties organizations, through the particular ecosystem of people who process surveillance abuse as a constitutional issue rather than a partisan one. The ACLU shared the clip without commentary. The sharing was the commentary. The third clip was 3 words, 15 seconds of silence after Vance asked Schiff to say, "I was wrong." The silence was different from the Johnson hearing silence. Johnson's silence was the silence of a man who could not produce evidence. Vance's silence was the silence of a man who could not produce an apology. Evidence is external. You either have it or you don't. An apology is internal. You either choose to give it or you don't. And the choice not to apologize in front of 40 cameras after the government itself has admitted wrongdoing is a choice that says more than any words could. The fourth clip was $2.95 million, the net loss calculation, settlement minus actual cost. The clip traveled through financial media, through legal malpractice discourse, through the specific community of Americans who have been surveilled, investigated, or charged by the federal government and have discovered that the cost of proving innocence exceeds the compensation for being proven innocent. The Senate Ethics Committee expanded its review of Schiff to include the deleted draft line. The expansion was triggered by the document itself, a congressional memo draft in which a member acknowledged IG concerns and then deleted the acknowledgement before publication. The Ethics Committee's mandate includes misleading Congress and the public. The deleted line was evidence that the misleading was not accidental, it was editorial. The Senate formally discredited Schiff's February 2018 FISA memo in a bipartisan resolution. The resolution stated that 9 of 13 specific claims in the February 2018 memorandum released by then-ranking member Schiff were subsequently contradicted by the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, and that internal draft documents indicate the author was aware of preliminary IG concerns prior to the memorandum's release. The resolution did not censure Schiff. The House had already done that. It did something worse. It entered into the Senate's official record that Schiff's memo was known to be flawed by its author before it was released. Carter Page testified before a separate hearing 2 weeks later. His testimony lasted 11 minutes. He described what surveillance felt like, the knowledge that someone was reading your emails, listening to your calls, tracking your movements, the knowledge that the government believed you were a traitor when you had served the country in the Navy, the knowledge that the chairman of the Intelligence Committee was telling America you were a Russian agent while you sat in your apartment wondering if you would ever work again. His testimony was watched by more people than any congressional testimony in 2026, more than Rachel Dervish, more than Crystal Atkins, more than any clip from any hearing in the series. Not because it was political, but because it was a man describing what it feels like to have your government turn against you based on a lie that a congressman promoted on television 412 times and never took back. Vance gave no interviews. When a reporter caught him in the hallway, he stopped. Carter Page served this country. He volunteered for a campaign. He was surveilled based on a lie. He spent 6 years and $4.2 million proving he did nothing wrong. The government admitted it was wrong and paid him $1.25 million. The man who promoted the lie has not said 3 words. He paused. The 3 words are free. They cost nothing. And he won't say them. He walked to the elevator. In Madisonville, Louisiana, Gerald Thibodeau stood behind the counter of the bait shop. Boudreaux called. Gerald said the Tuesday regular waited. Boudreaux said, when a man tells a lie about you in the bait shop, you lose a few customers. When a congressman tells a lie about you on television 412 times, you lose everything. And when the congressman never says sorry, you lose the part of yourself that believed the system was fair. He bagged the shiners. Carter Page lost $2.95 million, but the part he lost that he can't get back, that's the part Boudreaux was talking about, the part that believed the system was fair. $1.25 million doesn't buy that back. 3 words might, but the 3 words never came. In Middletown, Ohio, Crystal Atkins sat in the break room of the Brighter Days Recovery Center. The television was on. Donna was there. Johnson showed Schiff lied. Vance showed what the lies cost. She looked at the screen for 15 seconds. Schiff's face holding, the 3 words not coming. And the cost has a name, Carter Page, a Navy veteran who volunteered for a campaign and spent 6 years proving he didn't do anything. $4.2 million to prove nothing, because a congressman went on television 412 times and said he had evidence, and the evidence didn't exist, and the congressman knew. We know now because of the deleted line, the congressman knew, the IG had concerns, and he erased the line, and he went on TV, and Carter Page paid. She paused. You know what this story is really about? It's not about Schiff. It's about the 3 words, I was wrong. 3 words. Shortest sentence in the language that means anything. And in 15 seconds, standing, sitting, any format, any room, Adam Schiff could not say them. The government said it, a political sham, unlawful surveillance. The DOJ found the words. The institutions found the words. But the man, the individual, the person who went on television said, I have seen evidence. He couldn't find 3 words. And that's every story in this series. Every story ends with a silence. And every silence is the same silence, the silence of a person who cannot say the thing that would make it right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. 3 words, free. And not one person in this entire series, not Omar, not AOC, not Clinton, not Newsom, not Schiff, not Pelosi, not Waters, not one of them said it. She rinsed her cup. Hot water, no soap, upside down on the rack. That's the series. Not the scandals, not the money, not the lies. The silence. The silence where I was wrong should be. She walked back to the group room. 8 people trying to stay alive. People who say I was wrong every day in that room. People who say it because saying it is the first step. People who know that the 3 hardest words in the language are also the 3 most necessary. The television played on in the empty break room. You owe him 3 words, Senator. 15 seconds. The words didn't come. The screen cut to commercial. If you made it this far, you just watched a vice president place 2 documents on a desk, a draft memo with a deleted line and an amplification timeline with a 78% correlation, and prove that Adam Schiff didn't just lie about collusion. He knew the process was flawed, erased the evidence that he knew, went on television 412 times, and let an innocent man pay the price. And when given 15 seconds to say 3 words, I was wrong, he chose silence. The same silence every person in this series has chosen. The silence where accountability should be. Smash that like button if JD Vance reminded you that the most expensive thing in politics isn't a scandal. It's the 3 words no politician will say. Subscribe for more stories where deleted lines tell the truth and 3 words cost nothing, but nobody will pay. Share this with everyone who has ever been lied about, investigated for nothing, or waited for an apology that never came. Comment below what was your moment. The deleted line from Draft 3, the IG's concerns have been noted, 78% correlation, $2.95 million net loss, the DOJ calling it a political sham, or the 15 seconds where 3 words, I was wrong, should have been. Turn on notifications because the deleted line is public now. The Ethics Committee has expanded, the FISA memo has been formally discredited, Carter Page has testified, and somewhere in a Senate office, a man who went on television 412 times owes a Navy veteran 3 words that cost nothing and mean everything. I was wrong. 3 words. Free. 15 seconds of silence. That's the price of not saying them. God bless Carter Page and his 6 years and his $4.2 million and his Navy service and his empty apartment where he sat wondering if he would ever work again. God bless every American who has been investigated for nothing and paid for it with everything. God bless the people who say, I was wrong every day in recovery rooms, in kitchens, in break rooms, because they know that the 3 hardest words are also the only ones that matter. I was wrong. He didn't say it. That's the story.